live here. This is Mae Renfroe, the host of my podcast called Mighty Monday. So, welcome back to another episode here on Mighty Monday, where I just give hope and encouragement, inspiration, and through my guest stories that they share, just to help you get your week kicked off right, off to the great start. So, I'm Mae Renfroe, and I hope everyone has had a really good weekend, Labor Day weekend. So I hope everyone's had a good weekend and ready for this week. And yeah, I'm Mae Renfroe with my guest today, Lara Silverman. So big hello to you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited about talking with you tonight and um, to share a little about you here. Lara is a Christian author, lawyer, jazz singer, comedian, actress, violinist, and a songwriter. Wow, all the things. and well, and you've it says here that before falling seriously ill in 2018, Laura worked for two federal judges and practiced high stakes litigation for 3 years at Arnold and Porter K
Sure.
LLP. Okay, where she specialized in intellectual property and antitrust and contract cases of all kinds. Wow, a lot of high stuff I don't know about, but yeah. And then so your book, what you're talking about tonight, is your story through your book called "Singing Through the Fire," and it sounds like that you went through a lot of things. That you would Lori collapses on her dream job. She never imagines it will lead to 4 years bedridden or to the love of her life. So that is what Lara is going to be talking with us tonight. Her story. So Lara, just kind of, you can introduce yourself a bit more, or whatever you, or however you want to jump into your story. You've got a lot going on, and sounds like,
Yeah.
and a lot God has done.
Yeah. First of all, thanks so much for having me on. It's just a big privilege to be able to share my story on platforms like yours. And I hope that it can encourage others who are going through deep suffering like I have the last 8
Mhm.
years. It's been a pretty long struggle, but it all started with this rare neurological disease that came on pretty suddenly 3 weeks into my dream job, and that was
Mhm.
pretty demoralizing because I really felt like God had opened the door to that job. And so you can
Mhm.
imagine how confusing it would be when I had to resign. And, that was sort of what I had studied for my whole life in terms of going to law school. And so it was a really tough season. And that led to an even deeper season. I was completely bedridden for 3 years with my parents nursing me. Because I was diagnosed with a rare neurological disease. We still don't quite have the right diagnosis, because we've
Mhm.
tried countless treatments and nothing has helped
Mhm.
me. But I'm still here 8 years later, and the Lord is sustaining me.
Mhm.
But amidst all that, the Lord brought me my husband, who at the
Mhm.
time was struggling with his own terminal cancer at the time, and we prayed much about it. As you can imagine, but we decided to start dating, and God called us to get married, and then he passed away a year later. So it was a
Mhm.
very miraculous but also tender and sorrowful journey, but also one marked with a lot of surprising joy, if you will. You never expect that you're going to get married to someone with cancer, or let alone like while I mean, I'm still bedridden 60% of the day, so don't look at me sitting up now. I mean,
Oh, okay.
after this, I'm
Oh,
going to go.
really?
Yeah, I'm going to go crash on that bed right after this, because
Okay.
I can only tolerate so much sitting up. But luckily these days I can at least sit up for limited
Yeah.
amounts of time. So that's sort of the broad overview. You can ask, any questions. It's been a very wild journey, but I wrote this book after my husband died. I never
Yeah.
wanted to be an author, frankly.
Mhm.
I was a
Oh,
lawyer, but yeah,
yeah.
but God called me to write this book, and
Oh.
what am I going to say no? And so I wrote it basically on that bed while I was laying
Oh,
down.
okay.
Yeah, and it's called Singing Through Fire, and I'm an actor, I'm a singer. God gave me performing this last 8 years as a means to
Yeah.
find joy through all the grief, and so I thought that was the perfect title. So
Yeah.
so I just published it. I released it last week, and it's
Yeah.
been selling really well. It's to God be the
Oh,
glory, but I'm excited. I
yeah.
think God is doing a lot of things through the testimony.
Yeah.
So
Oh, wow. That's neat. You just never know what God's going to do with it, right? You do your part, you act on
Yeah.
obedience, what you feel, he's given you to do, and then you just leave it to him, and he'll just blow us away. That's um and what he does. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, um, wow. Yeah. Singing through the fire. Okay. So you are a singer. Oh, wow. And a performer. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. So what does that look like since you have been bedridden, though, in the last 8 years? Then
Yeah.
how have you got to keep up with that? And what did that look like?
I mean, the first 4 years, it was basically me just singing on my bed, laying down
Okay.
because I couldn't sit up for 3 years. And my parents were, literally nursing me. And so I would just sing, on the bed as much as I could, just to keep my sanity, frankly. But then once I started walking, God kind of nudged me to start to try singing again.
Hmm.
And I,
Hmm.
I did start to enjoy that, little doses here and there.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
well,
then
like.
when I got married, my husband and I started a YouTube channel called The Silverman Show, and
Mhm.
it was like a means for me to express my sorrow just because my husband was going through cancer and I'm still bedridden. So it was a means for me to, produce music. So I performed a lot of songs, oldies, pop, jazz, you name it, and violin pieces, and we put them on our Silverman Show channel. And it was just a way for me to have joy amidst
Mhm.
my grief.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's neat. And so you was able was you recording, with your husband, but then later your songs and
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
So then when he died, I just sort of kept it going by myself. And then I also started an Instagram channel
Mhm.
with Armenian comedy clips because I love comedic, I'm a comedian, if you will. Like I love doing comedy sketches.
Mhm.
So it was a way to process the intense sadness. After my husband died, I just felt like, okay, God is calling me to find joy in grief again. And so I started this Armenian comedy channel on Instagram, and
Mhm.
I was just sort of entertaining a lot of Armenians, just cultural jokes, sort of laughing at ourselves about, our food and societal expectations. And my parents loved it, and my aunties loved it, and that sort of thing.
Mhm. Well, that's cool. And so you were able to kind of just have fun, or give hope. I bet that was healing to you in a really
It
hard time, right?
It
In a
it
hard
was it was
season, but it
because
was healing.
I couldn't, bring myself to laugh otherwise. So like being
Mhm.
forced to do comedy, it's kind of
Mhm.
ironic, like walking through great grief, and
Mhm.
yet God was calling me to have joy. Does that if
Mhm.
that makes sense?
Well, it's wild, right? That's the thing. God, we can walk in things, in troubles and sorrows, and yet have great joy in the Lord, and
Yeah,
still have that, and that's part of having a life in
exactly.
Christ. And yeah,
In
exactly,
fact,
when you walk in that peace.
I mean, that was one of the main themes of my book, frankly, because that's the message God has drilled into me since my losses started 8 years ago. First I lost the health, then I
Mhm.
lost my career, then I lost my husband. So it kind of felt like,
Mm.
okay, I'm trying to take seriously, where Paul says, sorrowful but rejoicing. Or, I mean, that
Mhm.
it's constantly in the New Testament, this idea of
Mhm.
giving thanks in all circumstances and
Yeah.
just really having this joy separate from circumstances, which is incredibly difficult, frankly, but that's what God calls us to do. And so I've been living in that space for 8 years now. And I
Mhm.
have days where I'm like, "Oh, Lord, can't I just be happy? I don't want joy. I want just plain happiness.
Oh, okay.
And I've
Yeah.
struggled through that, but like got through each dip and high and low, like God has been walking with me the whole
Yeah.
way to try to keep me on the joy train, if you will.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Well, because happiness comes and goes.
right.
Joy is everlasting.
Yeah,
And yeah, and how we can have that joy, kind of regardless, what's
e-
going on at the moment.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so that's why I thought the title of my book was pretty appropriate because, like, who wants to sing through the fire? Usually you're burning up, but like the New Testament, it's all about, I mean, Paul and Silas worshiping in
Mhm.
prison, I mean,
Yep.
it's all singing through the fire. It's like Jesus calls us to take up our cross and to take it up almost joyfully. Yes, there is sorrow. It's not like he's saying deny your grief, but they
Mhm. Mhm.
coexist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Coexist. Yeah. Yeah. It was in the jail where they were praising God when their bands fell off. I love that.
Yeah.
And so there's power in praise, and it really is. I mean, because there's a reason he said to give thanks in all things. Um, there is just power. I think I've heard referred to this praises are like a weapon against the enemy. We just keep singing and praising God anyway because He is good regardless of what we're going through, and He deserves all our praise.
Yeah.
Um,
It's also like there are purposes we can't see, cuz sometimes it feels trite, like if there's someone out there right now who's
mhm,
suffering and it's like,
mhm,
"Well, how
mhm,
can you say God is good when I'm going through this?"
mhm,
If you remember the way he sort of forced me to see this last 8 years, that there's always a purpose, like there's a million purposes probably that you can't see for why he allows your suffering. That's what lets you have joy, because it's like if he took the cross and he turned it around into mankind's redemption,
mhm,
he's got to have a purpose for your deep grief as well. Like it's not
mhm,
just pointless. You know what I mean? Like there are glories in the suffering. I mean, it's all over the
mhm,
Bible. We tend to gloss over those verses, but Paul speaks of this over and over again about how, just like Christ's suffering led to his glory, we also, our light and momentary troubles are creating for us an eternal weight of glory, and we don't know how that works, but
mhm,
it's Second
mhm,
Corinthians 4:17. So
mhm,
yeah,
mhm,
that's one of my favorite verses now.
mhm. Oh well, yeah. It's like it's something that we can't really understand, I guess, in our human understanding how it works. But that is the
Exactly.
just the miraculous thing of God that He
Yeah,
gives us.
he turns it
Yeah,
around
yeah,
somehow, and
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think we'll be
yeah,
able to see it on this side. Maybe for some stories we do get to see the
yeah.
redemption. But I think what my husband taught me, especially because he had a very strong faith, even going through
Mhm,
cancer and
mhm,
facing death, it was clear that he just believed with every part of his being that God is doing something in everything. We're either going
mhm.
to trust that he's a good father or we're not. And so,
Okay,
yeah,
exactly.
it's harder
Yeah.
to do. You'll see my struggle in the book because I very much was not this kind of person. I mean, I've changed a lot. So in the beginning of
Mhm.
my book, you see, I don't want to say immature, but well, yeah, sort of a immature understanding of, how theology and suffering mix, and then you see
Mhm.
sort of the change in the things I learned over 8 years.
Yeah.
Some of them surprising, but God has really given me just as he's been near, he's near to the
Mhm.
brokenhearted. So
Mhm.
I feel like there's so many nuggets that he gave me, which I never knew. I think I was very much
Mhm.
sort of prosperity gospel, not
Okay.
explicitly, but I think the
Mhm.
church, it kind of seeps in. If God loves you, he'll bless you. Why wouldn't he?
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
but the
Mhm.
early church definitely did not view it that way. They viewed suffering as a privilege. I mean, that is so counterintuitive
Mhm.
to our
Yeah.
modern, oh, chase after the American dream and whatever. It's like, actually, Jesus said, in this world, you will have trouble.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So John 16:33 says that. I mean, that's like a promise based of we're gonna have trouble, but in the same equally promise, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. In me you will have peace. So that verse starts out, in me you will have peace. In this world you will have trouble. And so
ex-
that is part of the world we live in. Yeah. And so the
exactly.
more that we can understand that, really, the better off we are, because otherwise we're blaming God and wondering what happened. Why didn't you change this? I mean, if you were good, this shouldn't be happening to me, and all of this
Exactly.
stuff. But the more that we understand that, then the more we can just praise Him that He's with us and know that.
Exactly.
And so, yeah,
Exactly.
I can
So,
imagine that. I'm sorry.
oh no, I don't. Yeah,
Uh,
that's it.
I was going to say, I imagine that was a process for you, right? How did that, you know, how were you able to kind of shift from like, God, what's going on here? This is crazy, and meeting your husband, because what I can understand. So, like, you met him, he had cancer, and had the joy of the Lord, right? And it was strange, kind of like, how can you be like that? You're not, you've got cancer and all this, right? So, how did you change that thinking?
I mean, I think a lot of reasons why the Lord brought him to me was to sort of
Mhm.
change my theology, or at least help
Mhm.
me. I mean, I also do think God wanted to give us the romantic gift of love,
Mhm.
but it was very short, but I think that we
Mhm.
both learned a lot from each other. Like, I helped him
Mhm.
cling to the temporal blessings in a weird way, like just in
Oh,
the
okay.
time he had remaining. And
Mhm.
he helped me cling to the eternal blessings, which I, was not focusing on at all. So it was kind of an interest. I
Mm.
mean, it was a very interesting, marriage in that way, in terms of
Mhm.
like God using both of us to kind of grow the other person.
Mhm.
And God, he always does that. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Wow.
it was like a radical reshaping. And even throughout my marriage, I was still quite bitter. I mean, I'm very honest in my memoir.
Mhm.
You'll see when you read it. And the reason, I mean, I wanted to be authentic. The irony is I'm an actor, but I can't not be authentic. I wanted to give people the honest take, because I think that's how
Mhm.
you help people.
Yeah.
You want to show your journey so that they don't feel alone, maybe in their own
Mhm.
struggles, because otherwise
Mhm.
why write the book? So
Mhm.
but yeah, it was the understanding of how Matt dealt with facing death really changed me radically as a person, to the point where I don't view death the same anymore.
Mhm.
um I mean, I think our society doesn't really understand it, frankly. I mean, that sounds mean or something, but I mean, as you know, us, the Christians, we have this hope beyond death, so we can
Mhm.
cling
Mhm.
to the Lord's joy even in facing
Yeah.
death.
Yeah, because we know that this is not all there is. That this
Exact
it it's not. We actually start our future once we pass away on this earth, right? then our
exactly.
then our future begins, then our forever, forever with the Lord. And but we don't see it that way. We really want to hold on to this on the earth, and don't want to let that go. And I mean that's understandable anyway, but yeah, if we can live more with the eternal focus, what it sounds like your husband really had that, and that's how he was able to have that crazy kind of peace, right? That
Exactly.
that peace and that joy that, yeah, at first you found that hard to understand, right? But then you kind of,
Exactly.
was able to change.
You put it really well. For me, what was like most hard was just understanding like why God doesn't give some of us all of the earthly blessings. Like, I
Hmm.
would have loved to have kids with Matt. Like, we would have loved to have a family. Like, there was so much grief. Like, but all those questions I've struggled with for 8 years. And it's like, at
Hmm.
this point, I've come to an understanding that, like, you're either going to say God knows what's best for you. I mean, that still sounds not condescending, but because obviously he's the God of the universe and does know better
Hmm.
than me. But it's like, you're either going to say, okay, God knows what he's doing, or he doesn't, and that's
Hmm.
sort of the
Yeah.
bottom line of faith, which I clearly didn't have at the beginnings of this
Hmm.
journey, and even throughout, frankly. But this last year, I've seen like heart changes going on. And I don't know if it was because I wrote the book and I was able to wrestle more
Hmm.
authentically with my feelings. I'm not
Hmm.
sure, but God has definitely, humbled me. Like, I mean, there was a moment where he spoke to me, and, just to say, through a series of coincidences and devotionals. I don't know how God speaks to you, but it was this
Hmm.
idea of like, you know, just pride, and dealing with like, you're wrestling with me because you're not surrendering to my will for your life, and my will, like, and what I'm doing in your life, rather than the plans you wanted. And so anyway, it's been a long, I'm trying to just express the kind of wrestling that I think a lot of us do when you go through great
Hmm.
grief.
Hmm.
Because as many testimonies as we hear, like Matt's, there are people like me who really do struggle. And and it's okay, but we have to give our grief to God at the end of the day. I'm glad I've
Hmm.
clung to him the whole way rather than turning
Hmm.
away. But anyway, that was a long answer.
No, that's good. I like that, and just saying that we will wrestle with these things. And I think it's good for those listening, that they can, because we all have, right, at some time in our journeys. But the more that we do that, then that should bring us more to seek God, right? And then we have to get to Scripture and see, well, what is true about God. Is he supposed to be keeping us in complete health, or or just these things, and everything's supposed to be rosy when we give our life to him, or not? And so the more we seek the heart of God, then we can see where he's at and what he's doing in his life. And then he's really in the refining of our hearts and bringing us closer to him, and the learning. There's, like you said, you had so much learning and growing. Your relationship in God has just, escalated, right? From that time in your
Yeah.
life where you went from everything was great, promising career and everything, and then just
Yeah.
boom, basically
Yeah.
overnight, everything changed for you.
Just overnight,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that was really hard. Just like going from yeah, you described it really well. And that's why, in the beginnings, I was really demoralized. I mean, I'm surprised at how well I clung to faith, but I did have great bitterness. Like I was
Hmm.
still, turning to God and praying to God, but I was crying. It was very much like the
Hmm.
child pouting, like, I'm still with
Hmm.
you, Lord, but why?
Hmm.
So it's been an interesting journey, but I
Hmm.
think sometimes it requires it because, the suffering is not easy, and not to be in a pity party, but it's very difficult to go from, oh, God loves me and my life is great and this, and then
Hmm.
to have everything pulled out, you start questioning. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause that's when, then really test your faith. I mean,
Yeah.
so that you really have to, are you all in, or were you just in because life was good? Are you, have you really gave your life to God seriously, all the way, for better or for worse? Sickness and
Yeah.
health. Are you in? Are you in all
Ex-
the way? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
That's the thing. At that point, then we're like, oh, well, maybe this isn't good. Maybe God wasn't good enough for us. We want to bail out. But there's
Exactly.
that,
Exactly.
hmm.
There's a verse in First Peter that says these things are happening so as to test the genuineness of your faith, which is worth more than gold. I think it's
Mm,
First Peter 1:5 or
okay.
something like that, or 6 to 8 or something. But yeah,
Oh,
and that
wow.
that was one of the main
Wow.
themes. Yeah, God gave me, like, this idea of testing your faith. And at first you're
Yeah.
like, gosh, well, Lord, why do you have to test it? But it's all over the Bible. I mean, even in
Yeah.
Job, he
Yeah.
tested me and I came forth as gold. I mean, just this idea
Wow.
of being purified. I
Yeah.
don't know. There must be something in heaven that is required of us to have this kind of faith, because otherwise, like, what's the point of putting us through this? Like, there
Yeah.
must be some reason for the testing. As
Hmm.
humans, we just honestly cannot understand it all. I mean, we
Hmm.
just know that he does test us, and you want to be proven faithful. And I certainly have not, held up my end. I've had great bitterness and just really doubting a lot of times, but I've also still clung. And so I think
Hmm.
that, not to compliment myself, but I think sometimes even clinging is all you can do until you kind of
Hmm.
come to a new place.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is very, very normal. And God knows and understands.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. There's a verse that in Hebrews 11:6 that I really like that talks about faith. And it says, for without faith, it's impossible to please God. So we have to believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those that diligently seek Him.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
Again,
good verse. Yeah.
mm, yeah, that's where we just have to believe that He hears us.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What's your thoughts?
I think the trick is, I think where we get demoralized is when we see that the reward, in many cases, is not going to be on this side of eternity. That's where the rubber meets the road. Because,
Okay.
like, if you
Yeah.
right, because I mean, yes, he does give us his joy here, but, like, when you're thinking about, wanting to see the redemption for why my husband died, or wanting to see, I haven't
Hmm.
seen,
Hmm.
I mean, we
Hmm.
don't know yet at this point, but I have no doubt that it's going to be like a Joseph story where, who knows, maybe he died for the saving of many lives. I saw many people turn to God because of the way my husband was handling his death. I mean, so you just don't know, when you'll see the redemption, but the reward for many of us will be in eternity. Because, when the losses are so great and just nonstop, when it's all cross but no Easter, the only conclusion I can come to, which the Lord has actually told me, is, keep clinging, because even if the reward doesn't come here, the reward will be in heaven. So
Hmm.
I think it's a way he incentivizes us, to just keep trusting that he is good, because when you've been fleeced over and over again, and I don't say that in a bitter way, I say it just to like give a picture of, when you have so many earthly losses, it's hard to keep hope. The only thing you can have hope in is, okay, the Lord is going to just redeem this or show me a reward in eternity, or not that we're trying to do it to get a trinket in heaven or something, but it's sort of this, you get what I'm saying. It's this idea of like there was a reason, or just tying it up, or just, I don't know, because when you're grieving, it's so hard, not to hope for something more that will end this story in a good way. Does that make sense? And I think God has told me many times, subtly in my spirit and in other ways, that this is not the end of the story. There is something else. He will tie up these stories in eternity somehow. I don't know how, but he's the God of the universe. So, yeah.
For sure. And in the meantime, we just have to keep believing that he is who he said he is, and um, that he is a rewarder of those that diligently seek him, like in Hebrews 11, 6, and just believing that he hears us and he sees us and he keeps his promises.
Exactly.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's been a wild journey, but I'm glad that I wrote the book, because I don't know, I think a lot of people will identify with my voice in it. I feel like more people are probably in my camp than the extraordinary faith that my husband had. And I don't know, I hope not. I hope more of the church has Matt's kind of faith, but I think more of us struggle with the struggle.
Yeah,
So I hope that my
for
book can
sure.
kind of show others that, hey, God meets you even in the struggle. Like he's not
Yeah,
going to leave you. So for anyone out there
yeah,
grieving
for
right
sure.
now, yeah.
Yeah, he meets us there wherever we're at, wherever the strength of our faith is and how much we got, as long as we're clinging to him with what we have. He meets us, yeah, in the doubt, it's in the wondering. We really got to seek him. It says that, we got to seek him with all our heart.
Yeah. Yeah,
All our heart.
God has also impressed upon me that idea, the Shema of love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, which frankly I was not doing, because I wanted the earthly things more than the Lord. And so he definitely had to prune me in that way to say, what is your function on earth? I created you to love me, yes, to love others and to love my gifts as well, but you have to love me first. And so that's also been very humbling, if you will, to kind of realize, like, okay, where was my love placed? Was it in the Lord, or was it in, getting the husband, or getting, the good gifts? And not that there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I mean, I grieve intensely that I, don't have Matt anymore, but it's, I don't know. I will not get answers until heaven, but what I want to testify is that God has been by me the whole way, regardless. Just giving me comforting words, and my memoir reads more like a journal. I'd say, just showing every time God spoke to me, and that wasn't even every time. I mean, you can only fit so much in, but He's just powerfully near to the brokenhearted. So whether you have answers or not, He will comfort you. So I found that to be really interesting about our God, which you don't know until you're suffering, frankly. Yeah.
That's right. I think the goodness of the Lord shines through more in those
Exactly.
times. I mean, I would have to say that with my journey with the Lord, and just having gave my heart to the Lord as a child, and just because I grew up in a Christian home that loved the Lord, and that's what I wanted and all. But I can't say that is when I seen the goodness of God, and all the years everything was smooth, but it was when we lost our 14-year-old son, 7 or 8 years ago now, in 2017. After that, and just walking through that, the loss and the grief, but having the love of God and his peace, and all so present, that's when I seen how good God is.
Exactly.
That's
Wow.
when I can point and say he was so good. All the rest of the time, you kind of just take it for granted, because you're just like, oh yeah, life is the way it's supposed to be, right? I'm
It,
a Christian, so
it
this is uh,
absolutely.
yeah. But then when you go through the fire, you go through these things, and yet feel his peace and feel the joy and the presence, his presence. You're like, God, you are so, so good. I
Yeah.
maybe didn't realize it all these years, but you are so, so good. So I know
Did
that
you
that's,
did you did you feel like God like comforted you about your son's presence in heaven after he died?
yeah, like feeling
Or
that
just,
he
I mean,
was safe
or
at
not
home.
saved, or
Or
yeah, like did
yeah,
God give you little nudges to be like, be encouraged, my child, like he's with me, or stuff like that?
I really felt good
I
about
mean,
that.
huh?
Yes, I did really feel good about that. About that, and and there was a point, maybe 2 or 3 years after loss, maybe almost 4 years. I'm not sure. It was a time, when I feel bad about things that, not being the always the best mom, doing the right things, and you want to keep saying, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that, but you can't do that anymore. It was a time that I would like to have known that, my son Clayton forgave me for every little thing. And I was just praying to God, and I was like, God, is there anything, if Clayton could say anything to me right now, what would it be? And I felt he just like, I forgive you. And
Y-
and I'm like, okay, but what about that incident? And I was like, I forgive you. And I'm like, what about that time? And I kept recalling in my mind at least four different things, that was heavy on me. And it was like, I forgive you. And so that was assurance, kind of like what you're saying. It was like, that he is with God, and this is,
Yeah, that's
it
so,
was it was beautiful. I'll have to tell you, I had tears running down my face. I was in the vehicle alone, driving somewhere. I had the Christian music
yeah,
on. I turned it up even louder, and I'm just worshiping and praising God. It was like, that was beautiful.
that's so cool.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
God has definitely given me moments like that also, just to feel like, yeah, just in terms of Matt's presence, like in interesting ways. And I put many of them in the book actually, so I think you'll
Hmm.
enjoy those.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's neat. Oh, nice. I did. So I was gonna say, so you met him in that space of hospitalization, like in the hospital and bedroom? How
No,
was that?
we
Did
were
you?
we were friends from church, just
Oh,
acquaintances, and
okay.
he called my mom and said I'd like to encourage her, because he was the youth leader.
After you,
I was already bedridden, so I was
okay.
locked in
After that,
one.
okay.
Yeah, so I was in a room for 3 years in my parents' bedroom, and he came and visited,
Okay.
right when I was
That's okay.
starting.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, you don't have to give too much away if you want people to get your book. And they have this is like, okay, did we miss like where did you meet exactly? How was this? Okay, so okay, you were
Yeah,
at home
it
and
was
that.
very much a miraculous love story.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Isn't
it's
that
just
cool?
so improbable that like
Yeah.
just I mean he had never had a girlfriend either. I mean it's like
Oh,
almost
okay.
comical that we got, and he
Yeah.
was like almost 40 and I was 35. So and it was like funny that it was just such an interesting way for us to fall in love, and it
Yeah.
makes sense because we were both suffering so greatly
Yeah.
and yet found comfort in one another, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
and probably not in the ideal space that you would have pictured. You would have
No,
pictured
I
maybe
was
you meeting
picturing like
yourself in
Pinterest
that.
wedding, this, that. We
Yeah.
couldn't even have a honeymoon because, of our health
Okay.
conditions. So, but again, like God gave us so much joy regardless. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, our 1 year marriage had so many highs, a lot of lows, but many
Okay.
highs. So
Yeah.
it was a very miraculous story in a lot of ways. Like, just sort of like to the power of resilience when God is
Hmm.
with you. You really
Hmm.
can do anything. You can get married even right before you die. I mean, it was a really interesting story to tell. And because I'm an actor and a theater person, I love
Hmm.
telling it in these
Oh, okay.
pages,
Yeah.
you know? So I kind of wanted it to read sort of like a screenplay because
Okay.
it's just a very dramatic story. I mean, all of my
Yeah.
lows and the Christian's dark night of the soul, and then all of Matt's
Yeah.
hospitalizations, and he almost died, then he lived, then we got married.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing was just, I almost want to turn it into a movie, but I don't know
Yeah.
how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you get the right people behind you, it should
Yeah.
help. All right. Yeah, for sure. So it was like lots of drama and things that you wouldn't expect, but
Yeah.
God, He does His work like that, right? He works in mysterious ways,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one thing he told me also, which might comfort you about your son, is like,
Okay.
is just, I mean, not that you need it or something, but I think, oh, what was I going to say? Oh, like God has given me this idea of like how he's just writing a different story. Like, it's not like, when you face grief or loss, like we're any less or something. Cause I'm sure you've asked similar questions of why do I have to lose my precious son, and I've asked the same things, but God has said, can you just let me write this story and turn it from a test into a testimony? Like, you
Mm-hmm,
just don't know who's watching you as you
mm-hmm,
react to the loss and
mm-hmm,
how, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's so many things he's doing, and if you'll just let him use you as a participant to tell
mm-hmm,
his story, like it's just and he can speak more powerfully through the tragic situations, I believe. It's like, was it C.S. Lewis who said he shouts in our pain or something? I mean, I you know that quote about he whispers in our pleasures, but God shouts in our pain. Like, in other words,
I don't know
God
if
can
I've
give
heard
us
it.
his, yeah, I think it's C.S. Lewis, but it's like
Okay.
God can give us his truths all the more so through tragedy. Because I don't know
Mm-hmm,
why, but it's because our
mm-hmm,
hearts turn to him or whatever.
mm-hmm,
But yeah,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many. Yeah,
probably more open. Maybe I was gonna say, or just grass. We're at that place that we're finally ready. God, I need you. I don't need just this to know about just to be saved, but I need you in every aspect, in every way. And yeah, when we come that
exactly.
way, then he's ready to fill us and uh,
Yeah,
mm,
exactly. So
yeah.
this is what I think Christians are called to do, is just sing through the fire, metaphorically, literally. I mean,
Hmm.
it's very difficult. You can tell I'm kind of, the only reason I'm kind of tired today is it's literally 98 degrees in my house. So
Oh,
we don't have AC. So usually
oh,
my
oh,
spirit is more peppy, but I'm
yeah,
the
yeah.
heat is so oppressive. But I just realized like maybe I should tone it up in terms of my excitement, because my personality is way more effervescent. But I'm like sweating over here. But
Uh-oh.
I was just
Aw.
going to say, like, the idea of singing through the fire is very much a biblical concept, I think,
Okay.
like we were
Yeah,
mentioning earlier.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. With them in jail there, Paul and Silas for one thing. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's different places. I mean, I'm sure there's several, but the one time the singers were sent into the front lines in a battle to to be singing, to praising God before they won the battle.
Wow. That's cool.
For one thing, yeah. And I like where he also, in one of the times in the Old Testament, they raised, was it Abraham's, am I going to get it right, arm in battle? Somebody,
I can't remember.
I don't know whose arm. So raised in battle because, and it was like, and when he did that, their side was winning, but when he put it down, to me it was raised as in giving God the glory. Arm raised, you get all the glory. My help is coming from you. And that's what's beautiful about our praise, that we're just praising him because he is good, regardless of what we're going through. He's still good, and so we're just singing and praising him and giving thanks.
Right. Exactly. So we'll see what God does with, um, actually, I'd love to read your book also. I just saw that you also wrote a book, right? Or maybe I'm
Yeah.
getting confused. Yeah, I'd love to
No.
read your book
Okay.
also.
Holding on to hope.
Yeah, that's a great name.
Yeah.
Did you
Holding
write
on
that
to
after
hope.
did you write that after your son died?
Yes, about 4 years after, it is put together with the 4 years of blogging. So I was
Oh, cool.
blog. Yeah, I had already been like blogging, writing stuff on a blog, and when we lost him, I just started that journey, and I kind of just switched like the name of it a little bit to I don't know if I put holding on to hope on that, but it was like grieving with hope, I think is what I did. So I put a title, well, under like take those as grieving with hope, but then start sharing that journey the day we lost him, April 19th, 2017. And then I shared, write some a week later, 2 weeks later. So, and it was just sporadic whenever I could write. And so when I put the book together, I took the 4 years of that and then, had to edit it, make it book worthy into a book. But it has the date it was written and everything, just to make it more special. You can see when it was written, and when I am saying these things, how soon it was after our son's passing. But yeah, it was a total bit holding on to hope, because even though we lost our son, we never lost our hope. And it was the
That's
hope of God that kept us going.
that's so cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
I admire that. I love that. I would love to read your book also. I'm just looking now on Amazon here.
Hmm.
It's cool how God like helps us. I think in part we kind of also write it for ourselves, to just kind of like give it back to God in some way. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
for
really
sure.
does become a testimony. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. I was trying to mull in my head. It bugged me that I did not know the name of the man that was. I think it was Moses.
Oh,
So, but
yeah, yeah.
I'll have to look that up. Whoever's watching, if you didn't look that up, who had their arm raised in the battle. So, that's, but the point is that it was like, to me, it was like just really praising him for the victory before he's seen it, and just acknowledging my help is coming from God. And that's what we
Right.
have to do, is that, our help is coming from God, and he is who he said he is, and that he does hear us, and he sees us, and he loves us. And we just repeat that. Like, that's what I had to do to kept me going after losing my son. And you probably can relate to that too. It's just saying, God, you are good. God, you love me. I know, and because I knew it to be true. You might be questioning
Yeah.
why these things happened, but I knew that to be true without a doubt. With the bottom of my heart, I knew he was good, and I felt the peace that I can't describe. Not at all.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just
Hmm.
there must be a reason, and that's because as a lawyer, like it's almost a bad thing to be someone who's into analysis and
Hmm.
intellectual reason, because I always ask why, and I always want to know the reasons, and I always want to
Hmm.
look at the
Hmm.
logic. And so, but if we just trust, without, I mean, you're allowed to ask questions, but if you can get to a place where you can just trust what the Bible says, regardless of your circumstances, that's where the real growth is, which
Hmm.
is so hard. I think it was hard for me. But
Hmm.
once you can get to that place where you can say, even in the loss, you are good. I mean, that's a really powerful testimony, obviously. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's wild.
Hmm.
It's, yeah.
It is. Yeah. Well, it's been a joy to talk to you tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just love meeting other Christians. I'm an extrovert, so like this has been so cool to just share my story with kind people like you, and
Hmm.
you've had your own losses. So it almost feels like we're good friends just connecting even over,
Hmm.
our stories.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That we can understand and relate. Yes. Yes. And actually, after losing my son in 2017, my dad suddenly passed away in 2018. And then I lost a brother in 2019. So three
Oh,
losses back
wow.
to back in three
That's hard.
years. Yes, it was, and that's another thing that we had to deal with. It was, in the concept of kind of who's next. I mean, when it was one
Oh,
year, one the next year, one the next, we're going and thinking, okay, so who's next? But so it's really
exactly.
hard to keep the faith, believing, and just trusting God, and just giving, pray, and just, not living in fear, living in making the most of every day, but having that wondering, but
Exactly. Oh, that must have been so
God met
hard.
us there, though. Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, but it's the
It's
goodness of
hard
God.
because like the last thing I'll say is like I think what's hard about Christianity for me personally, and I've grown a lot on this issue, but it's like,
Hmm.
Lord, you tell us you're our refuge, you tell us you're our
Hmm.
protector, you tell her,
Hmm.
you tell us that, but then when bad things happen to us, it's like, ah, gosh, it's so hard to reconcile. Why didn't you protect
Hmm.
May's son? Why didn't
Hmm.
you protect? And so it's just, but that's where again faith is what pleases him. We're either going to
Hmm.
trust that he's still protecting us even in the loss, and we'll see it on
Hmm.
the other side
Hmm.
what was going on or whatever.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
I mean, that's I think the hardest tension in Christianity is saying, Lord, how can I ever trust you again if you said you would protect me, but this is what that looked like. It's so
Hmm.
hard. But
Mhm.
God does meet us in that, like you've been saying, like just speaking words of comfort, and just reminding us that he has a purpose, and reminding us that he's using it, redeeming it. I don't know. It's so hard, but yet he does meet us.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, because he gives us that peace that we
Y-
can't
Yeah,
describe. We can't
exactly.
describe
It's
it.
just
So
this peace. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and others can see it, so they know it's real. So they know there's something. God is real. God is real in your life. I can see it because you've got something that no one else has. People don't see that, and and then tonight, just talking to you, that I can see, and you've got that peace that only God can give. Um,
exactly. Yeah. I definitely didn't have this before when I wasn't even sick. It was sort of like
mhm,
one anxiety
mhm,
to the next of what's my next career move? What's my next
mhm.
whatever? And now
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
the Lord, will do what he will do, and he is sovereign. And what is the point? I like your shirt, the pray more, worry less.
Pray
you,
more,
you
worry
know what
less.
I mean? So,
Yeah, that's what we got to do more of.
but yeah, thank you so much, May, for having me on. I really appreciate this. It's been a beautiful
Yeah,
journey, just, and even telling it to you today
yeah.
is like, I feel like it redeems my suffering every time I
Hmm.
can share it.
Oh, for sure. No, these things are helpful and healing. And yeah, I thank you for coming on and talking with me. It's been fun. So just
Yeah.
all the best and all that you do in your book. I can't wait to get it. You said it's coming in the mail to me. So I'm excited. Thank you for the book. And yeah, for those that have been listening, want to get your book. So can you tell where to get it? And then we'll sign off. And
Yeah, people can get it on Amazon. It's available on
okay.
all Amazon stores. If you go to Amazon and type in either Lara Silverman without the U, just Lara, or
Okay.
if you type in Singing Through Fire, it should come up.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And I'll put the link for that in the video description too. So yeah,
sounds
so
great.
just yeah, all the best into everything you do, and I just am so glad that you found the joy of the Lord through a very hard time. Okay,
Thanks so much, me.
all right, take care. God bless
You
everybody. Have a really good week. Bye.